Hello, everybody. This is the second Sunday of the month, which means it is time for another session of Gemcutting Conversations. My name is Justin K. Prim. I'm going to be your host, hailing tonight from Bangkok, Thailand, where it is very hot and humid. Thank you guys once again for joining us. It is my pleasure to be able to keep doing this month after month. And I'm excited to say that this is the 5th month since we started kind of this season 2 of webinar series. Last season was, the first half of COVID or whatever, the first half of the year, where we had the IGT Sunday conversations, which are now all up on YouTube. And now series 2 is all about gem cutting. And every month I'm going to be talking to a different gem cutter, hopefully in a different country. And so I am definitely doing that tonight. We're going to be talking with my good friend, Rita-Livia Erikson from Estonia. So with some of the other people that we've talked to so far, sometimes the webinar was really, well, no, I guess it wasn't ever the first time we ever met, but sometimes I don't know the people very well. But in this case, Rita and I know each other very well. She's been my roommate now 2 times here in Bangkok when she was coming over to do her GIA. And Rita was the one who sort of introduced me to Meg Berry, who you will see up here as our first guest way back in September. So things are all coming around full circle. And I think that's cool. And so, yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about what's going on in the world of gem cutting in Northern Europe. So I guess without further ado, I will introduce Rita. Rita, if you are ready, then come on in and join the party. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks
How's
for
it
having me here.
how's it going in Estonia?
Um, Good. It's kind of quiet actually.
And I know it's snowy, or at least it was snowy the other day when we spoke.
Yeah, it's still snowy.
Okay. Not here.
Snowy is
Yeah,
good.
not here. Are you do you take inspiration from the winter season creatively?
I think I think nature in general is a big inspiration for most people in all sorts of fields.
Yeah.
So it's kind of inevitable.
For me, when I'm in the winter, I just shiver and I don't move. So I still make myself do stuff, but every time I lived in a cold environment, I never felt terribly productive in the winter.
Hmm.
So I don't know. That's just me though. But anyway, so yeah, let's get into it. You're Rita. I'm Justin. Hi. Um, w- so for our audience, maybe let's just start with the best way to begin, which is an introduction. So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and how you are.
Okay. So I'm Rita. I live in Estonia. And well, my journey in the gem world started kind of accidentally. Although I studied jewelry art in the university here in Estonia, I worked a little bit with gems, but not so much. I did my first carvings then, just like on my own. It's not like anybody taught me. Although we did learn how to make caps, so that was that. But I had no idea that that faceting is something that people actually could do, including myself. So
So you were in university, right? Learning a jewelry arts program. So this is where kind of the story begins.
mhm.
And so at that time, you didn't know anything about cutting, because and
um,
maybe tell us a little bit about what's the cutting scene in Estonia like? Like, could you have known about cutting anyway, or was that even
mm,
not possible at that time?
yeah, definitely not because well, I was making jewelry, um, but yeah, I had no idea that cutting is something that people actually could do, and I didn't know that that there was such a thing here in Estonia. I'm not even sure if back then there were any people who were actually passaging,
Mm-hmm.
because that was like uh, uh, 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay. So the cutting craze hadn't reached that part of the world yet.
Yeah, and well, what I knew was that definitely no one was teaching anything like that here,
Mm-hmm.
and well, that's not even that's not information that was known anywhere. At least it didn't reach me at all.
Okay. So this is probably quite different than maybe many of the people that are watching or that will watch who are either in America or maybe somewhere in Europe or Australia
Mhm,
where there is, maybe people don't live so close, but somewhere in their country, there is
mhm,
a group of people that you could theoretically tap into. But for you in
mhm,
Estonia, I guess for many people in the world who are not in those countries, it's like something that you maybe could only hear about online or on the
mhm,
grapevine, but not really as a local thing. So
mhm,
how did you even get into gem cutting then? So you were in Estonia, you finished I'm assuming you finished your degree as a jewelry artist.
mhm. Yeah, I think one of the main reasons why there isn't a gem cutting scene here is because there are no gems here in Estonia. There's nothing to mine.
Mm,
I mean, there is literally nothing. We
yeah,
have no mountains or anything, so there isn't even any potential.
yeah.
So that's why it couldn't even like develop like so many places around the world did. So anyway, when I graduated from the academy here, then I spent about 3 years working freelance as a jewelry artist, but at the same time I had uh, like a day job where I worked as a dealer in a
Okay.
casino. So that was the way that I collected money that I put aside at that time.
Okay.
Because about 3 years later, after my graduation, I went to the United States for 6 months, and since I couldn't work there, and then I only had the money that I had collected. And I actually went there with my friend and course mate Ethel, with whom you also met.
Mm-hmm.
And we went there actually with the purpose of studying the world of jewelry over there, because it is Western culture still as it is here, but it's on the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
So we, of course we expected it to be something quite different. So that was the main purpose of of the trip.
Okay. And
And
was it different? I mean, when you went to America and explored the scene, was it wildly different than what you were used to in Estonia, or is it you know, overlapping cultural influences?
I think there's quite a bit of an overlap, because um, at least the jewelry art part of the that world, but uh, but yeah, we didn't even get to that much, like to the into the jewelry world, because already kind of in the beginning we stumbled upon new opportunities,
Okay.
because um, we had uh, we had a place to stay in California, in
Hmm.
Fallbrook.
Okay.
And one day we went walking, and we discovered the Gem and Mineral Society in
Okay.
Fallbrook.
Yeah.
We saw the museum, and we went to see the museum. We saw all the specimens and stuff, and it was very cool, because actually they did have a pretty nice exhibition over there.
Okay.
And anyway, the lady who was working there that day, I think it was also a volunteer from the club. We talked to her, and then anyway, then we were introduced to the other rooms in that building, and they had a workshop there, and we were like, oh, so cool. And then they said that, oh yeah, people can also like study faceting here, and we were like, what? Because that was like so unexpected. We hadn't even heard about like learning faceting. It hadn't even reached like our consciousness.
Okay. So you had no idea that there's like a lapidary club
Yeah,
community.
no.
So that you just literally walked in on accident, stumbled into it,
Yeah.
and got sucked in.
Yeah, because we actually had to wait for Meg Berry to teach us, because I think that was the time that she had had eye surgery, so she wasn't teaching anyone. But we really wanted to learn, and we joined the club, and we did some cabbing at first, just to show that we know how to do stuff and we know how to use the machines and so on, and spend some time just there working. And then we met Meg, and Meg kind of just took us under her wing, and through her I also got my machine, because she said that, oh, there's a lady who actually wants to sell her faceting machine here. It was also in Fallbrook actually, and so I and she said, oh, it should be a decent machine, and so basically I went there, I bought the machine. That had been just sitting in her basement for 30 years, because she said that she bought it and discovered she had no patience for cutting. So I just bought it. I didn't even think about like maybe faceting isn't really for me, or maybe I won't like it.
So you
It's so weird.
you hadn't even tried it or took a class
Yeah,
or
no,
anything. You
no,
just bought the
no,
machine.
nothing like that.
Okay.
So, for me, it's funny to think about that now, because right now I wouldn't recommend anybody to buy a machine first and then study faceting. But that's what I did, because I studied on the machine. I I started studying on the machine that I have now,
Okay.
and I'm still studying with the same machine.
Okay. So then eventually you did figure out that it was something for you because you're still doing it many years
Yeah,
later. Okay.
yeah.
So, okay. So you started doing some training with Meg Berry. You already had the machine.
Mm-hmm.
Where did it go from there?
So from there, well, every week we went during the 6 months. Every week we went back to the club and to cut gym, study under Meg. And after that, came back to Estonia.
Mm-hmm.
And some months later, another friend that we had met in Fallbrook, Manny, you know him.
Yeah.
Uh, he had just done his GG. I don't know how recent that was, but he was also the first person who introduced me to gemology.
Okay.
Anyway, uh, he offered me a job as a gem cutter for a ruby mining company in Mozambique, and I was so surprised. I thought at first that it's a joke or something, uh, but it wasn't. So of course I said yes, and that's basically the year after, or less than a year after that I came back to Estonia. I was working as a ruby cutter basically.
Re- really?
And
Wow. I never heard this part of the story before.
oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, because it was like I went back to the States. I stayed with Meg Berry again. I was using one of her machines to cut the rubies, and she was also giving me tips and everything on how to and everything.
Okay, so it's kind of like almost like an intensive apprenticeship in some way because you had so much work
In
coming
some
out.
way, yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah, because I was kind of on a deadline also. I had this rough ruby that was just given to me when I stepped off the plane in the States, and then
Wow.
I had like, I don't know, a few weeks to cut it all, and uh, and then after that it was intensive study of the market in Tucson, all about rubies
Okay.
that we did with the team.
So that's a pretty intensive way to jump into it. I mean, just like,
Yeah.
because I mean, how long had you been cutting when that opportunity got offered to you?
I hadn't been cutting at all that much. I mean, I I had done some gems for my own free time because it's not like I had some custom orders or something here in Estonia.
Yeah.
People still pretty much have no idea that that's something that can be ordered or
Okay.
someone can make. So so it's like whatever I did on my free time as a hobby for cutting, then that's what I had done.
Okay.
But yeah,
Mhm.
that was
Then it was Ruby
quite,
time.
huh?
Then it was Ruby time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that was fun. I learned a lot, and also it was during that time that Nick Berry actually was the one uh, who actually put that idea in my head to actually look into studying gemology at GIA.
Okay.
So year after, that's what I started to do.
Okay. And then that's when we met because you were here in
Yeah,
Bangkok. Okay.
yeah, exactly.
And so now, you know, so many years after the beginning of the story, you have
Mhm,
finished your, I guess, bachelor's program as a
mhm,
jewelry designer. You've finished your sort of apprenticeship or whatever with Meg Berry, and you're a GG, and you're back in
mhm,
Estonia.
mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that I think that's I didn't really I realized as you were telling the story I didn't really give you a great intro because I didn't tell everyone that you are a jeweler and a gemologist and a gem cutter and a carver, which is why I think it makes this conversation interesting. I mean that was kind of especially why I wanted to get you on here, not just because you're in Estonia. I mean that is
Mhm,
cool, but you know, we haven't spoken to somebody yet on this series who is a jeweler and a gem cutter and a carver and you know, and a setter and a gemologist. You're basically able to do almost literally every job in the manufacturing side. So I think it's kind of different from definitely different than me because I
mhm.
literally don't know too much about jewelry other than the stuff that we've made. But maybe let's look at some of your work and just so people can kind of get an idea because we've heard some story. Let's get a little visual and show people, you know, after how many years is it since the beginning of that, since you started your jewelry program?
I started studying in 208,
2008. Okay, so it's
2008, yeah.
12.
And I graduated in 2012.
Okay. So it's been like 12, 13 years since the beginning. So we can see through a few photos what 13 years has done. Okay, so let's check it out. So we will switch back over to the PowerPoint. We got some really nice photos loaded up. Okay, so tell us a bit. What are we looking at here? Because I think most of the
Um,
stuff you're going to show us is a bit of combination of you doing gem stuff and you doing metal stuff, right?
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a pair of earrings. And the black part is actually black jade,
Okay.
uh, nephrite, uh, I guess.
Mm,
Although back then, when I carved these, I didn't really know that much about gemology, so I didn't test it or anything.
okay. So, and
Mm.
you carve these? These are your
Yeah,
creations?
yeah, I carved these, and the gems are both hessonite garnets,
Mm-hmm.
which I also cut.
Okay.
They're different shapes, but I just that's how I use them. And the metal part is white gold.
Okay. So we've got carving, faceting, and setting all in
Hmm.
one piece. So this really is a great intro piece because we can see everything that you've that you've learned in just this one piece. So tell us a little bit about the hands, because that's the part of it that really catches my eye. They look very delicate. And let me switch the photo real quick just so we can get a sense of scale. Um, wh- what's the story with the hands? First of all, what was the idea behind the hands, and how did you do that?
Uh, well, it's hands are very expressive, I think, because hands are used so much in not just in jewelry, but in all sorts of art forms, like in sculptures and drawings and so on. Hands are just something that I really like because I think they kind of have so many hints and they tell so many stories. It's like they can hold on and they can grab, or they can uh, just seem like a mental weight, like on your mind.
Mm,
I don't know. It's just so many things I relate to it, and
okay.
that's why I like the forum.
Okay, and so we're going to see a few hands through
Mhm.
this small showcase of your work. But so on the technical side of things, I mean,
Mhm.
as somebody just said in the chat, hands are hard enough to draw, let alone carve. So, and you didn't really in the story, we didn't get where was the part where you learned how to carve? Because somehow in that time you also picked up another really awesome skill.
Um, yeah, it's like carving is something I just started to do on my own. It's just the very first carvings I did. One of the first ones was also with the hands. Yep, but it was a bunch of hands.
Okay.
Uh, was that I didn't actually pay attention to the fact that you can also, well, polish the carving, because I had done no research whatsoever about carving. I just started to do it with the diamond bits and stuff.
Okay.
And I like carving because it's like, for me, it's like tiny sculptures.
Hmm.
It's it's a different world from faceting in that sense.
Okay. And so how long did it take to carve these?
These, oh, I wish I had well, paid attention to the time, but quite a while. Well, carving takes a lot more time than faceting.
Okay.
That's for sure.
So are we talking days, weeks, months?
Well, I didn't work on them continuously, but I think I made these like in maybe 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. And I know you told me a story once whenever you were here that
Mhm.
is this the one where you carved all the hands and then broke one of the fingers and then had to do it the whole thing again?
Oh no, that has happened several times with several pieces. uh, one of the first carvings also had one of these horror stories, because that was you had the picture also with smoky quartz.
Oh yeah, okay. Should I jump to that one? Is that the one with all
Uh,
the ear?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
let's check that one out.
yeah, that one.
Okay, so this is another ear piece. I'll show the other picture as well so we can
Yeah.
get a context of what this is.
Hmm.
So this is like an ear grabber.
Hmm. So that was actually a piece that I made for a competition that was held in Niederoberstein.
Okay.
And well, the horror story with that was that well, I had taken my time carving this because I had the time, because I had so much time until the deadline.
Okay.
But 3 days before I had to send them off, so they would arrive uh, in Germany for the right time. I was just I was almost finished, I would say, and the Dremel I was holding, uh, the whole piece went and bumped into it, and it just flew and it shattered.
Oh,
So I lost it.
the whole piece. It's just
The whole piece, yeah.
wow.
So I got another piece of rough, and I just did a Basically, it was a weekend long marathon, just carving. I think I slept for like maybe 4 hours total
Gosh.
because I still wanted to finish it.
Yeah. Well, and you had to send it off to Germany, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Gosh.
So that was probably the first horror story with
So
the
is that the
carving.
one? Is that the one we're looking at now? This is the one you carved in that weekend, or this is another one?
Yeah, yeah. That's the new one. I
Okay.
have the pieces of the first one somewhere in my drawer.
And it's quartz, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And
So,
it's not polished or anything. It's kind of rough, the carving itself.
and so is it made for a specific ear, or can it fit on most people's ears in the way that it's shaped?
It's not made for any specific ear, but uh, I would say that it's more of an art piece than actual practical jewelry, because I wouldn't say it's safe to wear it.
Okay. It's not going to stay on your ear easily.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, but it does look pretty, it's pretty interesting. If you did wear it, you would definitely start conversations with that. Um,
Probably
or you'd scare someone.
also likely.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's check out something a little bit more, I guess, traditional, if you will, and just check out some of your actual. So, okay, I want to ask a question as well. So, your skill in carving, did that start from carving in jewelry, like with wax, or did you completely just start carving in stone out of nowhere?
I think I'm pretty sure I carved stones before I carved wax.
Okay, because you're not doing too much wax casting. That's not really your style of jewelry, right? You're
But
fabricating.
this is wax casting actually. This
Okay.
was carved from wax and then carved.
Okay. And before we get too far, Chris Mowat in the audience had asked, did you have a hand model, or like were you looking at someone's hands when you were carving that stuff, or were you just looking at your own hands?
I was looking at just my own hands and how I made the hands, just to get an idea, because you cannot add material to stones when you carve them. Is that the first shapes I made out of Play-Doh, just to get an idea and just to
Okay.
play with the shape and how it should look like.
Okay. And then
And
once
then
the
I
Play-Doh
just
was looking
started.
good, quartz or
Yeah.
jade or okay. So tell us about this piece. So you said this is one that you carved in wax, then cast, and
Mhm.
and you faceted the stone as well.
Yes.
So what came first, the stone or the ring? Physically.
Um, well, the stone came first. I think with faceted stones, it's, at least for me, it's pretty much always that the stone comes first.
Okay.
Because with faceted gems, you cannot. I think it's very hard to dictate what the gem has to look like in the end when you take the rough.
Yeah, true. So then what, for this piece and for some of the other pieces that we're going to see,
Mhm.
um, do you just have some stones in your collection that you've already cut, and then when you're starting a new project, you look at those stones, or are you having some idea, like for instance on this ring, it's sort of pretty much like a pear shape, right? Or is it, or
It's actually more of a trillion, but
okay,
it's rounded. It's
okay.
like a roundish trillion.
So then did you already have that stone and you're thinking, how can I use this stone, and you built an idea around it, or was it in some other way?
Well, actually, with this ring that was made for a customer, she wanted a sapphire, and she had an idea approximately what she'd like the the ring to be based on my previous work. So I just took the sapphire and cut it, and then created the ring around it.
Okay, so basically whatever the sapphire whatever shape it would have come out as, that would have worked for this project. There didn't need to be a.
Basically.
Okay, cool. That's kind of fun. So then, so in that one situation, at least you could. So do you think if it would have came out as a different shape, would you have done something different with the carving of the wax? I mean, obviously not just to change the opening, but like, did the shape of the stone really influence how you sculpted the metal or the wax?
Uh, a little bit, but that's also, I think it's very difficult to explain it because it's just what looks good for my eye. So
Okay.
that's kind of how I base everything.
Yeah. So who knows what you would have done with a different stone? Maybe you would have been inspired in some way that you don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's check out. Yeah, someone said your prong setting is so cool, which I definitely agree with. That's pretty unique
Thanks.
prongs. Okay, so let's check out another one and just see if something like a totally different style. So what are we looking at here?
Well, this is also sapphire, but the ring is silver, and that was actually also uh, carved from wax first, and then cast the ring itself.
Okay. So
And
then,
I already had the sapphire, so the ring was built around it
okay, so
again.
that one was in your collection, but you faceted that one too, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So then you had the stone, you did the wax. Are you doing the casting yourself or do you hire that out?
Yeah, I don't have the equipment
Okay.
to cast. I can just cast for making sheet and the wire.
Okay. So you send out the casting, it comes back as a unpolished, rough ring,
Hmm.
and then you're doing all the finishing work, the
Yeah.
polishing, the setting and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Very cool. So that's a lot of skills right there to put all that stuff together. And then this one's also really texturized. So what's the story with that? Is that the customer wanted something a little bit more interesting, or where did that idea come from?
Um, that was just my idea because I wanted to create more contrast,
Okay.
and
So you kind
and
of
I
have
thought
that.
like
So you have like a polished ridge and then a really kind of a brutal sort of
scratched and oxidized
yeah.
surface around it.
Yeah, it looks cool. I mean, a lot of your work to me when I see it, and especially this one and the ear thing that we're going to check out soon, it kind of has a really industrial, heavy, not heavy in a negative way, but just it's
Mhm.
dark. You can imagine like you're not that far from like where Swedish black metal bands are in forests and they're like your neighbors or something. You can feel your neighborly influence. So that's cool. Okay. So what about this one? This one has a totally different feel to it, not black metal.
Yeah, this is this for me it has a very soft feel,
Yeah.
and that was just something very classical, I think, because it's just from these stones I only cut the center one, the tourmaline.
Okay. And then the ring just came around.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
So the next one, to me, this is for me, you're like your quintessential work because this is the one that I always saw, or I don't know if it's this exact piece, but the piece that you wear all the time. And I know you've made a bunch of these earrings, but to me, this is like your quintessential work because you were always wearing this when you were here. And
Um, there are actually two different pieces because uh, this one is not an ear cuff; it's an earring because it goes through the ear from two holes, and this was actually this I made by my own ear.
so maybe this
So
won't this won't fit
it
someone else's ear holes.
probably wouldn't.
So okay, so there's two studs in the back right here, something like that.
Uh, yeah.
Okay, and then the cuff is just sort of looped around your ear. We can maybe see it better here. Or
One
is
is
there a stud up here
yeah.
or
Yeah, one is up there. It's like a hook actually. It doesn't have a backing. It's just you the hook inside the hole, which is on the upper part of my ear, and then the uh, regular post is on the
yeah, you can kind of
yeah
see
on
it on
that
that side.
side. Yeah.
So where did this come from? So this one also you have a stone in there that you've cut,
Hmm.
and then again, we're in the forest of black metal, at least for me. I don't know if this is how you see it, but I like that anyway. But so what's the idea with this one? Where are these kind of um shapes coming from? Where's the inspiration coming from?
It's actually hard to tell because I think the style and the shapes and everything it's kind of like a handwriting. It's not like something I can control that well. It's just something that happens. But the idea behind that piece is actually uh, well, the concept of it is basically all the noise around us, uh, and how it kind of sticks to you, and it has it has kind of a weight uh, in itself.
You mean like a visual weight
Um,
or physical weight?
More like an emotional weight.
Okay, I see. And so just a random side question, but when you were here in Bangkok, well, and for anyone who hasn't been here or hasn't at least been in our group of friends, a lot of people here are French, and so many people are coming to you with the bisou,
Yeah.
kissing your cheek in a very French style. Have you ever stabbed anyone with these?
With this one, no, but actually one friend got got a small bleed from the ear cuff. I don't know even how, but it has happened only once
Okay.
that someone got hurt physically.
And so Terry Funtinch is asking, where's the inspiration come from? Are you inspired from literature, movies, or is it just your own expression and feeling?
Yeah, I think it's more about just how I experience uh, stuff and how I see it. Because, well, for me, well, jewelry as an art form, and for me, it's also I see it as something practical, as in it has to be a wearable art form. Um, it's uh, it's a way to say things that I cannot actually use words so well for, because I don't actually consider myself very good with words. So I'm much more comfortable like trying to make things more visual, even if it's just more understandable for myself,
Mm-hmm.
because people interpret things differently anyway.
Yeah, true. Okay. So let's look at a few more pieces. So I want to bring up another hands. These ones are
Mhm.
similar to the other ones, but there's no setting. I mean, sorry, there's no faceted stone underneath. So these
Mhm.
ones is it part of a series, or do you just have some days when you wake up and feel like you just need to carve some hands?
No. Well, the previous ones were actually for with the jade.
Mhm.
Those I actually made for an exhibition that I had here in Estonia.
Okay.
Uh,
Are these ones stone again, or these are a different material?
yeah, these are actually sheen obsidian,
Okay. Okay.
and this was actually a custom order because based on the based on the earrings that were on the exhibition.
Okay. Okay. So they saw the old ones. So then
Mhm.
how was the carving for these? Was it comparable to the jade, or was it easier or harder, or
It definitely went faster
okay.
because the material is so much softer.
Okay. And so we didn't really mention any, I know we're going to get into tools here in a little bit, but when you're carving stuff like this, you're just using a hand Dremel or like a flexi shaft or what?
Yeah, just a hand Dremel
So it's not,
because
so the motor is in there, or it's the one that's
yeah,
hanging. Okay. So it's
yeah,
not even like
it's in my hand.
okay. So,
I had the flexi shaft for carving, but it wore out, so I haven't gotten a new one yet.
okay. So you're just doing.
But for me, yeah, I like to I like to hold the Dremel and the carving hand like free, because
Mhm.
I like to have the freedom, because I for me it's actually a bit difficult to imagine how, for example, Meg, how she carves with a stationary machine. So the only thing that she moves is the stone that she's carving.
Mhm. So for you, you're literally moving the Dremel around
Yeah,
like
or at least I have the freedom to move both hands, even though I probably move my left hand where I hold the stone much more.
okay, interesting. Cool. So okay, let's check out a necklace then. What this is again, we're getting like a totally different feeling here. This one, well, it's not black metal at least. What's the story here?
Um, this is filigree, and the stone in the middle is a citrine that I faceted. Um, for me, this doesn't really have a story, because most of the filigree work is just about aesthetics for me,
Okay.
and it's about the process, because it also takes a lot of time. It's just making the material to make the filigree takes a lot of time, and then putting it all together like a tiny puzzle.
Yeah. And so for this one, you pulled all the wire yourself? Like
Mhm.
you're pulling wire of different sizes. You can see some of them are twisted. Obviously, they're
Mhm.
in, they've been made into different shapes. And then, so yeah, we have, even though it seems like it's a lot of wire, it's a lot of different stuff in there altogether, right? I mean, a lot of little techniques in there with the wire.
Mhm.
Okay, let's check out, this one's pretty interesting, and I want to take a moment for that because this is something totally different. The guitar, quite cool. What's going on with this one?
Thanks. This is a brooch, and well, with this one actually, um, the idea came first, and the gems I just fit in there,
Okay.
because that was a gift for someone who's a luthier who actually builds
Oh, cool.
guitars.
Great gift. What's the body made out of?
Well, the body is ziricote, and the fingerboard, which is black, is ebony.
Okay.
And the round gem in the middle is a sapphire, and the one that's like the headstock is a tourmaline.
Wow. So we have like a combination now again of faceting, carving, and the metalwork that's holding it all together. Super cool. Super unique. I bet he was really excited. That's a great gift. If someone gave me something like that, I would be ecstatic. Okay. So another expression of hands. What's this one all about?
Uh, this one is basically, well, my to me it relates to the emotion that nothing is really ever good enough, and that's just how it sticks out.
Okay. And so the hand is holding
I
a
think
cit-
that was also a citrine.
okay. And so this one is again wire similar to the one that we saw, or whatever, similar to the
Uh, this is just the plain wire. With filigree, usually the wire is texturized.
okay.
It's usually not smooth like this, and this is also white gold, so it's kind of stiff. It's not soft like silver would be.
Okay, interesting. And so yeah, we can see it kind of in scale. It's pretty big. I mean, it's not huge, but it's not tiny either.
Mhm.
H- so okay, going back to the guitar, someone
Yeah.
asked, "How's the main stone on the guitar secured?" I'm thinking
Uh,
you're talking about this one.
yeah. It's actually uh, the whole backing is silver, so uh, the setting for the sapphire is actually soldered to the silver backing, and the hole runs through the wood part.
Oh, okay. Wow. So basically there's a hole in the
Yeah.
in the wood.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So there's some drilling involved here too, then, a sort of
Mm.
flexi shaft drilling or whatever. Cool.
Yeah. Well, with wood, it's easy to compare it with stone.
Yeah. True. True. Okay. So here we have the filigree almost maybe taken to the next level, because this one looks really complicated, or complex. So what's the
Mm.
story with this one?
Well, I think the story is pretty much the same as with most of my filigree jewelry. It's just with this also. It started with a gem actually.
Okay. So what's
Um,
the stone?
it's a tourmaline.
Okay.
This stone actually that that was gifted to me by Meg Berry.
Okay.
So I
Cool.
finished cutting it here in Estonia, and so I made a piece for it.
Okay. Okay. And so final one that we'll check out, and then we'll talk tools. Um, the final hand. What's the story with this one? So you were telling me before, this is a lapel pin, or this is like a brooch. So
Yeah.
the shadow is kind of like falling down your shirt or whatever as you're
Mhm.
wearing it. So the hand is basically sticking out
Mhm.
and is it jade?
This is actually chrysoprase.
Oh, chrysoprase. Okay. And so what was the idea with the shadow? I mean, is there a meaning behind it, or is it just a cool idea?
Um, I think I think the first idea was kind of the practical use of it, so I could well, uh, so it would be wearable like it is, because
Hmm.
the needle just runs behind the
Okay.
shadow, the metal part.
Okay. And
But
so, okay,
yeah,
go on.
but it's just it worked out better as a whole.
Okay. And so, when we have hands, the other hands that you've shown have all been sort of up. I mean, the other carved hands. This one's pointing out. So somehow it's almost like we have a totally different meaning here. I mean, a hand coming out is much different than just a hand. So
Mhm.
is there a tangible expression that we can pull out of the hand that is, I don't know if it's trying to grab or pointing or some.
It's more about reaching out, I think.
Okay.
But
So,
yeah.
so if we see someone with this, we'll try and have a nice conversation with them, because maybe they're trying to reach out. Okay. So, okay, we have a good sense of what you've been doing for the last 8, 9+ years, between carving, faceting, setting. And so you're sitting in the studio right now. So maybe it's a good time to talk about how are you doing all this stuff, and what does it look like behind the scenes? Because I know you've got all those different tools somewhere around you. So maybe we can do, if you can, I don't know if you can move your camera, we can do maybe a little walk around and just see
Yeah.
what do you have, what do you have in there?
Can I change the
Yeah, there
thing?
should be a button somewhere to flip it though.
Ah,
Yep, there we go.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, this this is where I spend most of my time.
Okay. So
This
this is
is
the jeweler's bench.
yeah. So it's basic in the sense that I can do all the basic stuff that I need,
Okay.
like drawing, filing, and so on. Uh, Here are some other stuff, and here is well, the gemology and the stone setting and all that corner.
Okay. So the
Uh,
so
yes.
basically you can be identifying the stones that you're potentially about to cut, and then
Mhm.
cut them and then sell them. Oh, Meg's saying get closer. She wants to see more close-ups.
Okay.
So this is your, and then with the microscope, are you doing, is this for gemology, or is this for setting, or a little bit for both?
This is for both actually. Most of the time I use it for jewelry work, but I can also use it for gemology because if I need a higher magnification, I just switch out the lens and I can just use uh, whatever different light, like the fiber optic or the dark field, because
Okay.
I mean that's something that I just built to have it with usable with one microscope.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. I wish microscope is like the number one thing on my gear list that I want to get this year, but
Hmm.
that's a that's an expensive thing to have to add to your arsenal. So that's awesome that you have one, and it's all set up in like in another bench, right? Like it's mounted right there. You can really use it. That's really cool.
Hmm.
Okay, so what else is in this studio room? So far it's
Uh,
cool.
well, this is where I cast well silver and gold for
Okay.
making sheet and wire. So
Okay.
this is like a small corner for that. Rolling mill, and this here is my faceting machine.
Cool. And so this is the one that you bought in Fallbrook all those years ago that you were telling us.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
so this is the first and only machine you've ever had then?
Yes.
And it's an awesome blue. What machine is it?
It's an imperial.
Okay. And you said already that it was sitting in a lady's basement for 30 years, so we know already that it must be from the 80s at least, if not the 70s. Do you have an idea about how old it is?
Not really. Maybe Meg Berry knows better than I do
Okay, well maybe
because well,
if she
she
does.
she had an idea about this machine. I knew nothing about them anyway.
And so um and I see you've got a saw over there as well. So you're sawing, you're
Oh yeah.
faceting.
Hmm.
So let's just get a little nerdy for a minute while we're looking, because
Yeah.
we love to get nerdy on this
Hmm.
show. So what's your setup here? I know you've learned under Meg, and for anyone who saw Meg's talk a little while ago, we have some idea about how she's cutting, but just give us an idea about how you're cutting. What's your lap sequence? What's your polishing style?
Um, well, for cutting, I have here. This is the copper lap that I'm using.
Okay,
It's it's solid copper. On one side, it's charged with 600 grit, and the other side is 1200. So most stones I cut at first 600, then 1200, and then for polishing, I use either tin lap with Lindy A or bat lap with diamond.
cool. So for you, everything is loose grit. You don't have any like topper laps or plated laps or whatever. Everything is
Hmm.
you're applying. That's so cool. I think you are the first person I ever met, um, when we met some years ago, that cuts this way. And I love it because, as I've been doing my journeys around the world, a lot of the old school people that I met, like in London and Paris, of course they do it this way too. They don't have plated laps or sintered laps or whatever. They just have a copper
Hmm.
lap that they constantly keep adding 600 grit diamond powder onto, and then another copper or a tin lap that they do the polishing on. So I think it's awesome that technique, through Meg and maybe many other people, I don't know, but I think it's awesome that technique has sort of adapted itself into the world of masked machines. Yeah, it's cool. I want to play with that as well. I haven't got a chance. And so Meg commented that those
Hmm.
machines were big in Fallbrook in the early 80s. So maybe yours is also
Ah,
early 80s. And she's saying
okay.
Pala modified them for German laps. So that's cool.
Hmm.
And she's saying, yeah, she wanted to make sure you had a renewable equipment. So because since you couldn't get, new gear in Estonia, so
Yeah.
the old school
Yeah,
way was the
that
best.
hasn't really worked out well so far.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't need to buy any new gear, right? Because everything is,
Yeah.
you just need diamond powder or whatever. So
Hmm.
that's awesome. So is it like 96 index or how? Because people are
Yeah.
saying they
Well,
never saw this one before.
well, I use 96. I've tried the lower number ones too, but it's just too few numbers for me.
Okay.
So I use 96 for everything, and I like it that I can turn it with using one hand only.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. And so is it, I see a knob back there. Is it, you can change the speed, you
This,
can, no,
this,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
This this is where I can put it on reverse, or well, it's clockwise or counterclockwise. What this one does,
Okay.
and this is the speed control.
Okay. So even though it's kind of older, it still has pretty much all the modern features that all the machines
Mhm.
today have. Cool. Very cool. And I love the color. You don't often see like, occasionally you'll see like a blue Facetron, which are pretty rare, but you have a blue Imperial. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. So, okay. So that's your fasting station. We saw jewelry. So where are you doing the carving at? Is this also happening in the fasting station, or you have another station just for carving, or you just pull it out?
Yeah, I don't have another station for it. What I actually do is I remove the lap from here. I
Mhm.
cover the hole that's in the middle where otherwise the water would run through. And I use this same thing for collecting the water, and this same thing for having the water to drip on the stone that I'm carving. And I just do it like I just put it here, and I do it here, the
Wow.
carving part also.
Okay. Cool. So the fasting machine becomes a sort of secondary tool for carving as well. Interesting.
Hmm.
Or just as a water container, I guess. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then for the carving, you're just using, you said before you're just using diamond bits. And
Hmm.
then are you also getting into polishing in the carving, or were you saying before that you're just,
Yeah. Well, I started well, polishing my carvings and stuff after meeting with Meg Berry, obviously, because well, she did carving, and I got some tips from her
okay.
about how to and so on. So now I'm using the same Dremel, but I'm using different mostly diamond paste and felt bits.
Okay. Cool. This is something I need to learn as well, because we have all the diamond bits for carving, and we had to do one project and we started carving something and then realized we did not have any of the felt bits and had no way to finish what we started, and it was a real mess and we had to give it to somebody else. So this is something I need to learn as well. Terry Fontinch was asking, what is your favorite stone or your favorite gemstone for your work? Do you have one?
Um, well, for me, it's very. I don't really have favorites. I know that for me there are some stones that I like to work more, and some stones that I just like more. Um, I don't have a real favorite.
Okay. Or is there some that you use more often than others?
For what do you mean, for carving or faceting, or
I don't know, for faceting, I guess.
for faceting? Uh, well, I would say that I think the top list are probably garnets, tourmalines, sapphires. I would like to cut more spinels, but that I don't have the opportunity to do that much.
True. And okay, another question from the audience. This is from Dennis McGillivray. What do you use when you're melting your metal for when you're doing your casting and doing your forming and
Ah,
stuff?
this thing.
Ah, okay. Is
Which
that
is,
propane?
yes.
Okay. So you're heating up, you got a torch, and you're just, because
Hmm.
basically you're just melting stuff inside of a small crucible, right? Or like inside
Yeah.
of a small
Yeah.
crucible bowl, and then from there you can make either wire or sheets, or well, sheets and then wire. That's how it works, right? You make sheets and then they become wire, or is that right?
Not really, because you can cast like a stick, like a round stick, and you just can roll it through the mill as a wire
Okay.
from the start.
Okay. And someone had asked, have you ever tried a handpiece machine, or have you only ever used masts?
Oh yeah, that's also one of the things that I liked when I was there in Bangkok, because I tried the Estonian machine, that the handpiece
Oh
that you're
yeah,
using.
I forgot you came in
And
for a short class one time.
yeah, it is. And I also tried the Bunter, the Victoria's
Ah,
machine.
yeah, true. So were you swayed at all, or are you you're in love with the machine that you've got?
Actually, I really like the handpieces. I really like it because I like the stability of the handpiece, because with the mast, at least with that machine, when I apply pressure, then the angle changes.
Mm-hmm.
It, it's not that like fixed, but with a handpiece, it's not that flexible. So it's just the angle stays the same, but it's getting either it's getting lower, it's not getting lower.
Mm. Yeah, I could see
Dep-
that. I guess the distance between the stone and the basically the end of the handpiece is way shorter than the mast. So there couldn't really be any flex, but of course the handpiece has its own issues to deal with
Mhm.
as well. So and Chris Moet asked, are you using a blowpipe or a torch tip for melting your metals? That's a technical question right there.
Basically just a little bit bigger end for the piece. It's basically the same as I use for anything else, like soldering or
Okay, so
whatever.
it's just a regular soldering
Yeah.
tip. Okay, cool. Okay, great. And someone just asked me exactly the question that I wanted to ask you, or where I wanted to go with. What is the faceting world like in Estonia today? So you said before when you just got started that maybe there weren't any faceters
Mhm.
there. And I know that besides you, I've met two others now. So I'm feeling really lucky. I've met three Estonian cutters. How many cutters are in Estonia?
Well, there is no one that does it as a main job.
Okay.
You couldn't actually survive it like this, I think.
Okay.
Not in Estonia, because I mean, you wouldn't have the work to
Okay.
be able to.
There's not
There's
enough
no more.
clientele right now to support
But
this.
yeah, but there are, I would say there are probably 6 people who have the equipment, the knowledge, and the ability to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But how much to do it depends on
Whatever.
anybody's interests and time.
Okay. And so Scott Kelly asked, is there any sort of local guild? Are you guys working together as a group, or is everyone really independent?
Yeah, there is no guild. There is nothing like there is in the States, for example.
Okay.
But most of us know each other, and it's not like we're heavy competition or anything like that. It's just I think most Estonians in general are just more used to working on their own. It's it's just how people do things, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess the lapidary club scene in America is quite unique. I mean, that does exist in a few other countries, but most of the countries of the world don't have such communal lapidary groups. So it is kind of an American thing, but it's cool. Um, Another good question from the audience: how are you getting stones? Where are you getting stones, and what stones are available to you being in Estonia?
Hmm. Well, so far, most of my rough that I bought it in Tucson, because well, starting from the first year when I started to cut, which was the first time I went to Tucson. Since then, I've been back 4 years in a row. Well, this year I'm obviously going,
Hmm.
but that's where I have bought most of my rough.
Okay.
I also got a little bit when I was in Bangkok,
Okay.
but uh,
So
yeah. But now it, yeah.
if you had to supply stones to yourself from there, is it possible? Is there anywhere like in Europe, like let's say in Europe at all, if you needed to get stones
I
regular?
know that there. You mean rough?
Yeah. Or maybe stones for recutting, but yeah, rough generally.
Rough. I know that I know at least one rough dealer in Europe who's in Germany. But also most rough dealers are willing to send internationally because well now for the first time I'm also ordering rough online, which I never really wanted to do because I always wanted to see and hold in my hand the rough and see what it is and like get a very good idea of the piece.
Okay. But obviously COVID's changing things.
Yeah.
I haven't ordered any rough yet, but I have done some weird online stuff this year or this last year that I never did before. So COVID, yeah, maybe it is opening up some new avenues for us. Okay, so
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit. One of the things I really wanted to talk to you about, because I know there's a few things that we can talk about that nobody else can talk about since you're a jeweler and a gem cutter. And I know for a lot of people who are gem cutters who haven't yet worked with a jeweler, and I know for me as well, before I moved to Bangkok, I never cut any stones for jewelry. I didn't know anything about jewelry before I moved here. And then I've learned a lot since I have. But so speaking from the point of view of a jeweler, can you give us some tips? Like if someone's cutting gemstones and they don't know anything about like the practical needs of jewelers, what are some basic guidelines of what you would need if you were going to set a stone, like let's just say in a ring for ease?
I would say that one thing that definitely helps a lot is not having the upper girdle, the edge very sharp.
Okay.
I mean, you can have it a little bit softer, so you cannot even see it.
Hmm.
But it definitely lowers the risk of chipping or anything like that when
Okay.
you set it.
So you're talking about after you finish your crown, you're going to go back to the girdle and do a really deep, well, we call it breaking the girdle. I don't know what you call it, but it's basically just a tiny little line on top of the girdle that instead of it
Mhm,
being like 90 degrees and 35 degrees, maybe it's
mhm.
like what angle do you do that at when you're doing that?
I don't really use a specific angle because when I do it is I do it as the very last thing because well I cut and polish the pavilion first and then the crown.
Okay.
So
So are
uh,
you doing it freehand or is it actually faceted?
I'm actually doing it freehand with a little well with something like this.
Oh, okay. So you're actually almost like a with a carving tool.
Yeah,
Okay. But
yeah,
I
but
know,
it's very soft and
so it's
it works with most stones.
okay. So it's just really slightly rounding it a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But I know for us, we sometimes do the same thing for like emerald cuts and stuff where there's a really long hard line. We'll do
Mhm,
like I don't know, maybe a 75-degree angle, super
mhm.
almost microscopically tiny
Yeah.
around the top of the girdle just to
Hmm.
kind of curve it a little bit. So okay, that's a great one. And most people don't, I haven't heard too many people speaking about that. So that's a good tip. What else? What about, this is one thing that I always try to talk to people about. What about the depth of the stone? Like how deep can a stone be? How tall can a stone be and still work in a real setting?
Well, well, that depends on who's setting it.
Hmm.
But I would say that lower crowns, or, well, shallower crowns are easier to set
Okay.
usually.
But is there some point when a stone might just be too tall? Like if it's incredibly deep, is it getting harder to set, or is it just going to be sitting up really high in the jewelry?
Well, then it's, I think that just makes the design part more complicated because I mean, how do you fix it like visually?
Yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah.
obviously, as we saw in some of in your work, the stones are pretty down in there. I mean, there was a couple where they're really sticking out, but
Mhm.
and I think most jewelers are the same, that most people are asking for low profile,
Mm.
at least from what I hear. So I
Yeah.
didn't know
But
it.
but also with higher crowns, for example, in rings, it's much more easier to damage them if they're sticking out.
True, because they're going to be hitting stuff more often.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a good question from Chris Moet. He was asking, when you're cutting a stone around the rough, right? You're not trying to make a
Mhm.
calibrated size. You're going for whatever shape and
Mhm.
odd proportions you might get. Does that end up becoming complicated for jewelers, or and maybe not specifically for you, since I think you're probably doing a lot of custom settings, right? You're not doing prefabricated settings that need
Mm.
calibrated stones. But do you think for the typical jeweler who maybe is using prefab um, baskets,
Mhm.
how does that work with odd unique
Well,
stones?
well, then it's definitely much more complicated. But uh, but that's why I think uh, for for those kind of faceted stones that are one of a kind, they need one of a kind setting because you
Yeah,
need it to be reliable and just to fit there nicely.
true. That's a good point. I think for anybody who any of us gem cutters out here who are cutting really special stones that are the
Hmm.
right size to be a centerpiece,
Hmm.
you almost don't want to put them into calibrated sizes because you almost don't want them to be seen in the same way as the kind of
Yeah.
stuff that you can order out of a catalog. Like, it's not catalog stuff. It's
Yeah.
a maybe a piece of art if you want to go that far.
Hmm.
Um, do you ever work with, this is a question from the audience, do you ever work with synthetics, or are you only natural stones?
Um, I prefer not to work with synthetics. I like natural stones and I like what they represent and I like the story itself with natural stones.
Hmm.
So that's why I just choose to work with them.
Okay. And Susan, from the audience, asks, are there any native stones to Estonia, or like amber or something?
No, you cannot find amber in Estonia.
No, so
Um,
just gray
no,
rock.
you can find like yeah gravel, small pieces of quartz, feldspar.
Okay. And anything worth playing around with, or not
No,
not spending too
nothing
much
that
time?
facetable.
Okay. So, okay, here's a good question, because I do want to talk about process as well. So Terry Fontinch asked, as far as your creation process go, from starting with your rough stone, cutting it or carving it, making the metal, setting it, putting it all together. Obviously, this will be different for every piece, but
Mhm.
generally, how long does it take to go through all those different steps and create one of the pieces that you just showed us?
Hmm. Yeah, well, that varies quite a bit. Um, I would say,
Or
mm,
give me an example. I can pop one of these back up if you want to talk a little bit about it, like one of the ones that actually is, a faceted stone with a setting, and we can maybe just talk a little bit about
I don't
the
know.
process.
Maybe I would say maybe like in a week,
Okay.
I could do something like that.
Okay. So that so then if somebody wants to get a hold of you, for instance, hypothetically, to make a custom piece, and you've got a rough that works with their idea, and maybe they give you some ideas, and you're gonna, what do you do then? Do you someone asked the exact question I was going to ask. Do you sketch them out, or do you just have an idea and you just go straight into the metal, or do you need to show the customer some visual thing before you can get started?
Yeah, I always sketch before I start the work
Okay.
because well, I get a better idea and I don't want to just surprise the customer because maybe they don't like it. So,
Yeah, that would be a
and the
scary.
gives at least an idea. It's never 100% like the sketch anyway, but it gives a pretty good idea.
Okay. So someone comes to you, you have the stone they need, hopefully, or at least a rough that you can work with. You're going to sketch something out. They're going to approve it. And then, what is it, a week or two where you're cutting the stone, figuring out how it's going to go into the drawing that you did, and then starting to work with the metal?
Yeah, I think just to be safe, I always um, say to, you know, uh, that maybe that the work probably should take 2 weeks, just because if anything unexpected happens, I have the time to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to be in a hurry. I don't want to put myself in a deadline where I have to hurry and maybe something terrible happens.
Yeah. Okay. So as a person who is a small business owner in Estonia, or a boutique jeweler in Estonia, what's the business experience like? Like obviously if you're in Thailand,
Mhm.
whatever, Thailand is a totally different experience. But if you're in America or in Europe, Western Europe, where you're maybe closer to the jewelry centers of the world, theoretically, hypothetically, maybe you have more clientele. What's it like in Estonia, where you're a little bit more remote? If you are remote, I'm totally generalizing here, but
Mm, I would say that in that sense, at least most of us are remote
mhm.
because, well, considering already the fact that so many people in the world don't even know what Estonia is, then you don't expect like to be in a high-end place in like 5 years.
Mhm.
um
Because there's no high-end place to get to. Is that what you're saying in Estonia?
at least in Estonia, there isn't. There are private goldsmiths and jewelry artists who can make high-end one-of-a-kind pieces, but uh, there isn't like a center as such.
Okay. So then is most of your clientele finding you online?
Most, I think most are, yes.
Okay. So you're kind of in the same situation as me, you know, try to put as
Mhm,
much stuff online, hope that someone finds you that's looking for what you're
mhm,
putting out, and location doesn't really matter. So you could be in a cabin in the woods for all we know. Maybe you are in a cabin in the woods for all we know, and it's not any different than if you were in the middle of Paris. Like, I mean, personally, like,
mhm.
you're not getting your clientele locally anyway, so it doesn't really matter as long as you can mail some stuff.
Yeah, although with at least so far with most of my clients, I still meet uh, or well have met face to face,
Oh, okay.
even just to get the ring size.
Okay. So then a lot of people are actually local Estonian customers.
Yeah, yeah. Most are still Estonian, but and in that sense local, that we meet at least once.
Okay, cool. So, okay, then maybe that's actually better than Bangkok, because we have almost no local customers for what we do here. But okay, so we mentioned a little bit horror stories, but is there more to say? Because everybody loves a good horror story. So we said already you broke several hands. Um, have you had any horror stories with like working on customer stuff, or even horror stories with customers themselves as a jeweler?
Mm, I don't have very terrible horror stories. I have a horror story where being a gem cutter really saved me because I was making a custom pair of earrings, and there were tourmalines, green tourmalines that I had bought, and I was setting them in the already made earrings. That was the last thing I had to do basically before final polish or whatever. And while I was setting the second tourmaline, the second earring, I heard a crack, and like a quarter of the pavilion just had broken off. I had broken the tourmaline. But what saved me was I had basically the same color rough tourmaline, so I just went and cut basically the same same shape, and I took the same measurements from the broken piece, so I made the exact same size tourmaline, and the color did match.
Wow.
So
So that was pretty lucky. You didn't
yeah,
have
that
to
was
try and
lucky.
find a gem cutter, and you could cut it exactly to the setting size that you had already made, so you don't have to really modify anything. Wow. Okay. So that's not a horror story. That's like an awesome story
The
because
first part of it was a horror story.
yeah, true. Um, okay, so then going back to this idea of cutting for jewelry. I mean, this is something I want to keep talking about because it's something that I don't hear people talking about too much, but if somebody wants to work with a jeweler, I mean, obviously you're cutting maybe many of your own stones, but if you weren't a gem cutter and you were just a jeweler
Mhm.
and somebody wanted to work with you where they're doing their boutique stones and you're setting them as a one of a kind jeweler, are there rules, or can they basically make anything that they want and you can figure out a way to set it?
Um, I think I personally think that they can pretty much make anything that they want, and if I like it, I'll find a way to use it.
Okay. And so do you think, if you look back to your early training when you were just a jeweler and not yet a gem cutter, has becoming a gem cutter changed the way that you're approaching stones now, whether it be mechanically in the setting or creatively in your design?
Uh, yes, I think that that has changed a lot because when I was uh, when I was studying how to make jewelry, and when I hadn't really worked with gems that much, and I was just making jewelry, I didn't really know about gemstones and their properties and what I can and shouldn't or can't do. So I would say that the the fact that I was so like unknowledgeable about all that
Mhm.
made me very cautious, and um, well, I would say that it really helped me back in that sense.
Okay, so you got some confidence, like you understand the stones now because
Yeah.
you know how to cut them and you know what they are. What about
Hmm.
the gemology side? Has the and I think somebody asked this in the chat and I sort of skipped over it, but has the gemology training helped you in your business or just helped you in your approach towards working with stones?
Both, because well, for me, since well, since for me jewelry and making jewelry and all that is well, it has so much meaning, and gemstones do too. And the knowledge about gemstones and their history and what their properties are and how they're formed and where and all that stuff, and the cutting process and all that, it creates a whole different kind of story and builds a new level. And well, I would say that's one part where the knowledge about gemology has really influenced me because I see things differently,
Mm,
or I view things differently. But also, I mean, um, it's also something that's useful for me here, and not just for me, because I can be useful for other jurors, because gemology is also about just identifying gemstones, and that's not something that people really know about here, because gemology is also a very unknown field in Estonia. There's like maybe one or two gemologists here, and well, that's one of the reasons why I went and studied myself, because I felt that I didn't have a reliable source and I needed the knowledge.
Okay.
And I needed the knowledge even just for knowing how to identify the stones that I had or have or will buy or have bought.
Yeah. And so do you think, in your professional life, do you think that being a jeweler, being a gemologist in Estonia, will you try and do anything professionally as a gemologist, or is that just sort of supporting your work as a jeweler?
A little bit, yeah, because I mean, I can write the reports or whatever for people with gems who don't know what they have, for example,
Okay.
or
So
who need something like that. But it's not like we have GIA here or other labs like that.
there's nobody, it's just you and a few other people that could be helpful to the public.
Mm.
Okay. So quite a different experience than probably most of us, because most of us maybe do live at least in a country where there is a lab somewhere. I guess for you, if you really needed to send something to a lab, you would have to send it to Switzerland or something. I'm trying to, or Germany maybe is the closest lab.
Antwerp, I think.
Okay. Okay. And so somebody asked, have you tried to develop your business at all in Sweden or in Norway, or
Um,
only in Estonia?
at the moment, I'm more concentrated on my work here in Estonia, and that's also not just the jewelry part, but also about gems, because I feel that the lack of knowledge about gemstones in general here in Estonia is not just affecting what I do, but it's affecting everybody's work,
Mm,
and that's kind of what I try to concentrate on right now,
okay. And
besides making jewelry.
so so obviously now you've painted us a picture of someone who really wears a lot of different hats, as a jeweler, as a gem cutter, as a gemologist, as someone who's going and buying rough, as someone who's dealing with customer service. Do you think, as a small business owner, do you absolutely need to do all those things to survive, or do you think could you have just done one of those things and still been able to, be successful and pay your bills and everything like that?
Um, yeah, I think I could have just stuck with making jewelry, for example,
Okay.
and just perfecting the technical skills. That's something that you could survive with here. I,
Okay.
I don't really need, like, for surviving, I don't need any of the other skills. It's just what I want.
Yeah, what you like to do. I mean, obviously you're doing amazing work with gems and carving, so we can see that you love to do it. I'm just thinking about, but if you were just a gem cutter, would it be the same, or you could not survive that way?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Not in Estonia.
So gem cutting has to go with the jewelry in your situation, at least. I wonder
Hmm.
though, what about if someone was a gem cutter and also doing the services of a gemologist? I wonder if they could find enough work between those two to.
Even for gemologists, there is no real market for the
Mm,
work here.
okay. So the jewelry,
So it's a side thing anyway, in any case.
yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so a few other questions from the audience. When you're cutting pairs or doing pairs, do you cut them both at the same time? I mean, in that one story, you just had to cut one as a replacement, but if you're normally doing earring pairs, do you do them?
Um, yeah, with facet gems.
Hmm. Okay. And what about the
Uh,
hands? That when you do double hands, are those back to back, or do you give yourself some time in between?
uh, yeah, with the hands, I pretty much do them. Uh, I think kind of parallel still, not because I want them to be in the same shape and kind of have the same feeling. So I just do with the same feeling the work.
So you're literally doing them both at the same time, like you'll bounce
I do
between.
some, for example, I do the main form with one, and then I take the other. I don't finish one and then do the other one.
Okay. Okay. So
Just
they're really
between different steps, I switch.
okay. So it's just time saving that way as well, probably, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this question I know the answer to already. This is from Morad Bausch. He was asking, are there any fastening machine manufacturers in Estonia? I already know the answer. That question is no. But if you were going to try and buy a local machine, what's the closest you could go? I'm thinking it's Germany, but where could you go locally if you could drive somewhere and pick up a machine in your
A
part of the world?
manufacturer. Hmm. I don't really know.
Yeah,
I haven't looked into it.
yeah, I know you can get fastening machines in Idar Oberstein. There's manufacturers there. I know you could get. I'm trying to think of. Well, I guess maybe the Czech Republic. That's not. Is that closer than Germany? I'm trying to think about where you are on the map.
Um, they're both pretty much the same distance.
Yeah. And then France and Switzerland would be a bit further. So yeah, not too many places to get machines in northeastern Europe. And going to the Czech Republic means you're going to have to speak Czech. So Germany is probably the best.
Germany would definitely be better option.
Yeah. Okay. So, but yours is all the way from America. So you solved that issue from the start. So you didn't have to worry about it, which is probably good. I know most people that I speak to that are in Europe are still looking towards America to try to get machines because I don't know, maybe in Europe, I mean, there are manufacturers there, not that many, but some do exist, but no one's ever heard of them. I mean, unless you live in Idar Oberstein or you live in the small town in the Czech Republic where the guy makes the hand pieces, you wouldn't have any idea where you could even buy a
Yeah,
local machine. I mean, even for you, you are a few countries away from Germany, but maybe I know more about the German machine than you do
probably. I
if you have.
definitely do.
So, okay.
I
So,
think one of the about the American machines. I never knew this to be a disadvantage, but when I saw Laura's machine, I just realized like why don't all the mass machines have the quill where you can just remove it?
oh yeah, yeah. So you're talking about Laura in Australia with the gem
Yeah,
master that
yeah,
the
yeah,
quill
yeah,
comes off
exactly.
and you
Hmm.
can inspect your stone and then snap it back onto the mast
Yeah,
and then be a mast again.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
she kind of blew my mind with that one too. I actually bought one of those last week.
you did.
Yeah, I found a sort of a half broken one and I was like, okay, I need an Australian machine. Somebody found it for me and I don't think I'll be able to use it because the quill is bent, but I was like, I really want to have a secondhand Australian. So now I'm going to be able to play with one too. And at least see, I really want to see how the quill
Oh,
comes off and whatever. But yeah, Meg
yeah,
just chimed in and said you took your suitcase or you took your fastening machine home in a rolling suitcase.
yeah, yeah. I traveled to Estonia in a carry-on bag.
Oh wow.
So
So
that's like I don't know, 22 kilos or what was it?
yeah, oh yeah, gosh. I've done that 2 times now. Once from Switzerland and once from Sri Lanka, bringing machines in. I didn't ever do it on carry-on though. I checked the bags.
Yeah,
Um,
I was too afraid that something would get bent or something would happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mine got a little bit banged up, but mine was okay. But all mine have been okay in the plane. But I kind of think maybe the plane is less jarring than the mail because the UPS guy, they're sometimes tossing the boxes around. So
Mm.
um, okay, here's an interesting question from the audience. How many languages do you speak and which ones of them have been useful for what you do?
Uh, well, I don't actually speak that many languages. the main languages that I speak are Estonian and English.
Okay.
And I do understand a lot of Finnish. That's a lot to do with just the fact that it's so similar to Estonian.
Okay.
Um, I do speak well. It would be very useful to speak decent Russian, but I would say my Russian is not so good. So at least in the world of jewelry and gemstones, it's I don't even have the vocabulary for that.
Okay. So you're pretty much you need to stay in the world of Estonian languages or English language
Well,
to
English
do business.
actually is good because that's pretty much international.
Hmm.
But Russian would be definitely useful for me here.
Yeah, because you could potentially get a lot of customers the other direction because you're right there. And
Mhm.
of course, if you can go into Russia, then there's a ton of other gem cutting. Yeah, we didn't say actually, if you want to get a local machine, Moscow would be the best
Oh
place
yeah,
because
right.
there's a lot of people making machines there. But if you don't know
Yeah, that
Russian,
is.
you wouldn't be able to find them. But if you know me, I know at least one guy. Okay, so somebody asked how, and I wanted to ask this too. What does it look like for the future? Are you planning to stay in Estonia and continue to build your business there, or are you looking abroad to, you know, I don't know, take advantage of other types of business opportunities in other places?
Well, right now I'm staying most of my time here for a while, I think. But well, that doesn't mean that's gonna stay like this because well, when we can travel again, then 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 I still want to explore more and study more and use more opportunities when I get any.
Okay.
So it's not like my journey will end here.
Yeah. But you're not really planning to move out of Estonia permanently, right? You're
Yeah, no.
oh,
I think my home is going to be always here in Estonia. It's just I cannot. Well, before COVID, I could say that I can always travel. Now it's not quite true,
yeah.
but
No, I
uh,
think we're all feeling that pain. But
yeah.
okay. And so anyway, what are you working on now? You have upcoming projects, or I know you were mentioning an exhibition the last time that we spoke. What's going on right now, especially in the time of COVID?
Yeah. Well, funny thing that during this difficult time, I'm going to have an exhibition here in Tallinn, Estonia, and it's it is a jewelry exhibition, and it's in a jewelry gallery in Old Town here, but uh, it's very focused on gemstones
Okay.
because the main idea of it is just to draw attention to gemstones and the variety of the world and the cuts and the colors and just to broaden people's minds that the world of gems isn't just diamonds and that's where it ends.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating and it has so many possibilities.
Okay.
And just to plant that idea into more people's heads, I
Okay.
guess.
So not only is this sort of an exhibition of your work, but it's also kind of maybe planting the seed for future customers, showing them the wonders of colored stones so that they might want to, whatever, culturally, generally speaking, they
Mhm,
could get into this idea that colored stones are cool. And who
mhm,
knows, you could actually create a new customer that way, show them something they never saw before and create a spark of love or whatever in them for colored
mhm.
stones.
Yeah, but it's not just. I mean, it's. I'm taking it as more of a broader idea in the sense that I think other jewelers' lives would be also so much more interesting if they could work with so much more interesting materials and have the experience of it all. It's not like the idea of it is just to get all the work for myself. It's just look how amazing everything is.
Yeah, yeah. No, exactly. I mean, spreading the joy of colored stones. I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think it's cool to not just, as an artist who's going to do an art show, not just focus on this is what I'm doing, but like this is what I love, and you might love it too, because colored stones are actually pretty easy to fall in love with,
Yeah.
if you like cool stuff. Um, Somebody had asked, do you ever cut stones for other jewelers, or are there other people that are asking you to cut stones?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, now finally I'm more here in Estonia. Before that, I was in the States and I was in Bangkok studying and all that. So that's also why now I'm here and I'm finally concentrating more on building up for what I do, not just with jewelry, but also with gemstones and yeah. I mean, I do a little bit of work for other jewelers too. For example, you know, recuts. I
Hmm.
like actually doing recuts
Okay.
and fixing stuff
Yeah.
because, well, it's always nice to see the before and after.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it seems to me like, as a person who's teaching a lot of people cutting, I am always encouraging people to focus on recuts, because basically, if you live anywhere where there is a jeweler, you could
Hmm.
find at least a little bit of work, because jewelers are always needing recuts, because whether they're breaking stones or their customers are breaking in broken stones, it's a good idea.
Hmm.
Yeah. So anyhow, Rod Knowles asked the question as you were saying it already. So yeah, recuts. It's a good idea, even in Estonia. So then you don't have to be necessarily competition for another jeweler. You can be part of their arsenal as well. Like if they need somebody to do that
Hmm.
recutting work, or whatever, you can also work with them too. So that's cool. So then, we said already that there's only like what, 4 or 5 or 6 gem cutters in all of Estonia. Since there's so little work and there's, so little cutters, are you guys competition for each other? I know you said you're all sort of friendly, but realistically, do you have to think about getting work so that it's not taken by somebody else, or it doesn't matter at all?
I don't. I haven't really concentrated on that at all, and I think it's a lot to do with the fact that I also don't take other jewelry artists as I don't see them as my competition because, well, there are plenty of jewelry artists and there are plenty of goldsmiths. I mean, you can find whoever to do jewelry for you.
Hmm.
So I think how how people make the choice where they turn to is based on what they like. So that's basically what the style is that someone is doing.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. Like someone who sees your work and is drawn to it, they're
Hmm.
not gonna go to another jeweler and be like, "Can you make something like that?" It wouldn't make sense, because maybe another
Yeah.
jeweler wouldn't do something like what you do, and maybe you wouldn't do something
Hmm.
like another jeweler would do. So, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and hopefully in the world of gem cutting, we can also find our own style, where
Hmm.
somebody would see our work and want to commission us specifically, not just because we cut a nice stone, but maybe at some point you can also develop a cutting style. I mean, I'm talking about me, not you, but maybe you can do that too. You've obviously already done it with the hands. I mean, you've done it a lot. You've sold some. At least in my world, you're known for hands. If anyone talks to me about hands, I'm gonna be like, you need to see Rita. Like she does hands. But whatever, or ear spikes. Um, Scott Kelly had asked, do children gravitate towards your stones, or have you had experiences with children and your work in general?
Um, yeah, a little bit. I've noticed that children are really drawn to colored stones
Hmm.
because it's like, I think as it is for many of us, it's like, oh, it's like candy, colorful, and you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. But you haven't had any special, like a kid is like, gotta have it, mom, buy that.
Oh no,
No,
no, not nothing like that.
that would be pretty good. But okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Another interesting question from Murad Bausch. He was asking, does Estonia have any kind of ancestral cultural elements that you could pull into jewelry? Like maybe if there's a traditional style in Estonia that you could, yeah, if you wanted to, you could
Mhm.
tap into. Does that exist in Estonia? Is there such thing as a, like a traditional style?
Um, yeah, I think there is. It's just it's very far from my own style, and that's why I'm not drawn to it.
Okay. So we can leave that for another jeweler on another day. Okay.
Because there are jewelers and jewelry artists who do or and who are inspired by all that. So
Okay. So, okay,
that
cool.
does exist.
So you've got a show coming up. You've got maybe some work in progress. Are you working on any new ideas now? I mean, obviously we've seen a fair amount of different kinds of concepts that you've worked on. Are you working on a master project right now, or anything specific?
Well, right now is well since the exhibition is coming up, I'm concentrating on building that up. I just finished some pieces for it. I can show a few
Okay, yeah, that'd be cool.
because, well, for example, this. These are all ear cuffs. It's just I'm using in each one I'm using a different gemstone.
Yeah, there goes one.
Yeah, that I myself cut. But yeah,
So then,
this is the kind of style that you were used to seeing me wearing. I think
okay,
in like
so spike in the ears. So then
yeah.
basically then when people see those, that's going to help them get a sense of all the different varieties of colors and types of stones that we can find, because you're kind of using um that motif of your
Mhm.
spiky ear thing to show some different colors. Is that
Yeah, because each one has a different color and different species of gemstones.
okay? Cool. And so what about, are you doing, I thought whenever you were here that you had mentioned before occasionally doing some teaching. Are you ever doing teaching for either jewelry or cutting or even for gemology?
Uh, yeah, last year I actually started teaching gemology uh, uh, in the same university where I studied jewelry art,
Okay.
the Estonian Academy of Arts, and I started to teach there, and I think it's great because well, I want at least them who study now to get the information that I would have wanted to get when I studied
Okay.
about gems. I mean, even the basic knowledge.
Yeah. And so as you're teaching the course, do you have the opportunity to like add in some tidbits about cutting and stuff like that? I mean, since you know about cutting, are you able to tell them a little bit more directly than someone would have told you before? Or
Um,
or is it pretty
about cutting
yeah, I mean, can
fasting.
you speak about fasting a little bit in your courses, or is it really focused on just the science part?
No, it's not focused only on science part, but when it comes to cutting, I'm concentrating more about not not on the process of cutting, but the outcome, which
Hmm.
means the symmetry, windows,
Okay.
all that stuff
So just kind of
that they
teaching them how
should
to
pay
see.
attention to. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good training for them to understand, what are we even looking at here?
Mhm.
Okay. Awesome. Well, it sounds like you have been very busy and are going to hopefully stay very busy despite lockdowns and COVID and everything else. Um, I know you told me already that your exhibition doesn't really have an online component, so there's not really a way for us virtually to interact. But
I'm gonna upload some pictures of the works and stuff,
okay, so we'll
so
be able to
people can
find
see
it
them.
on
Yeah.
your social media or something like that. Okay, cool. Well, I think we are pretty much at a good time. We are almost at 2 hours, and I think we've said most of everything, and we have had a ton of really nice questions from the audience. So let me just throw up the final screen. So if people want to find you later, they can. So let me just pull the PowerPoint back on, and we can see. How people can find you. So you're on Instagram, you've got a website. Um, I know lots of the pictures that we showed today are up on the website. So yeah, if you guys want to find Rita, you want to just follow her and see what she's up to and see what she's doing, find her on Instagram, check out her website. She's got a lot of really cool stuff. And obviously, of course, if you have an idea, a custom commission, that would be good. So go for it. But anyway, Rita, thank you so much for the time and the stories and the photos and, just sharing your journey with us. It's been awesome to connect with somebody in a part of the world that we have not yet spoken to before.
Thank you, and thank you everybody else.
Yeah, it's been a really engaged audience. I think we had more questions tonight than most of the time. 30 questions is what my Q&A is showing, so that's pretty good. And so yeah, of course, this is going to go up on YouTube. If you guys missed any of the previous webinars, I've got them all up in a YouTube playlist. So whether you're looking for one of these previous ones or any of the ones we did in 2020, we've got them all up on YouTube. There's a playlist called Webinar Archive, so you can just go onto my YouTube and find any of those old ones, including Meg Berry. So if you want to know more about the backstory behind Rita's mentor, you can find the Meg Berry story up there too. So that's cool. Okay, so yeah, next gem cutting conversation is going to be on Valentine's Day, so that's great. I hope it's not going to be in conflict with anyone's date night, but at least in Bangkok, it's looking like date night's going to be COVID date night. So whatever. But yeah, we'll see you guys in a month. Rita, thanks again for showing us all your stuff, and I will definitely be following you on Instagram because I already am. But and for everybody else, thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time. And I know that I'm just watching this chat unfold. We've just unleashed a giant discussion about removable quills. But anyway, the one I just wanted to point this out before we leave. The one that Rita was mentioning is not the facette, it's the Australian Gemmasta with the A at the end. So if you can find that one, we mentioned it. There's one YouTube video where I'm talking to Laura Phyllis, Tatum Gems, and we're in Tucson. It's 3 gem cutters, and we're talking about machines. So you can see her pulling out her quill on that Australian machine, and I'm hopefully going to do a video about that machine soon anyway, once mine arrives. So yeah, happy cutting, guys. Catch you next month. I'm hoping we're going to have a Czech gem cutter, but that's not confirmed yet, so we'll see what happens between now and next month. So okay, Rita, well, I'm going to let you go, and you have a very pleasant new year, and good luck with the exhibition and with all of your um, upcoming projects and stuff. And okay, I'm gonna let you go. I think you're. Oh yeah, you're muted. You're unmuted. You're lost in technology here.
Ah,
Okay. Okay,
okay.
Rita.
Thank you.
And catch
Bye.
you later. Good luck. Have
Yeah,
fun.
you
Bye bye.
too. Bye.